Hello, I'm Hyunwoo from TalkToMeInKorean.com, and I know that these 4 one-letter particles in the Korean language have both confused and frustrated many learners around the world, so I'm here to help you out once again. And I say once again because we actually already have an audio lesson on our website, and that's Level 1, Lesson 9 of our grammar curriculum. And I will put a link in the description for that lesson. And many people actually totally got it, totally understood it after listening to the audio lesson just once, and many people say that it's such an easy concept to understand, but still a lot of other people say that it's the most difficult concept to comprehend in the Korean language, even after living in Korea and speaking the language for many years. So we'll see how this video can help you out with that. So what are these letters? 은, 는, 이, 가. Again, 은, 는, 이, 가. These are what we call particles or markers in our lessons. 은 and 는 are a pair. They are the same thing. And 이 and 가 are a pair together. They are also the same thing. They respectively have the same usage and meaning, except 은 and 이 are used after words that end with consonants, and 는 and 가 are used after words that end with vowels, purely for ease of pronunciation. But first of all, before we actually look at these particles, here's a fun fact. These particles are very frequently omitted in everyday speech, mainly when they have no real purpose to serve or when the intended meaning is very obvious. Okay? So let's talk about 은 and 는 first. These are commonly called topic markers or topic marking particles. And that's because when you introduce yourself in Korean, you say, for example, 저는, your name, 입니다. So I can say, since my name is 선현우 in Korean, 저는 선현우입니다. So here, you are introducing the topic of the sentence. And the topic of the sentence is 저, which means I. So 저 is the topic of the sentence. Basically, it's an answer to, okay, what is this sentence about? So this concept applies to all of the following sentences. So for now, let's ignore the other parts of the sentences and just focus on these parts, 은 or 는, okay? The first one is talking about 오늘, which means today and today's weather. So you could say that 날씨 or the weather is the topic too, and it's true, but 날씨, the weather, is actually more important as the subject of the verb 좋아요, which means to be good. So as for today, and today is the topic of the sentence, that's what I am talking about. So in terms of today, the weather is good, okay? So for now, just remember that the main character of the sentence is 오늘. And the same thing applies to all the other sentences. 내일은 일요일이에요. Tomorrow is Sunday. So what are we talking about here? 내일. So you have 은 after 내일. Tomorrow is Sunday. Okay? 내일은 일요일이에요. And in the third sentence, 이 카메라는 비싸요. This camera is expensive. What are we talking about? Yeah, this camera. 카메라. 카메라는 비싸요. 이 카메라는 비싸요. The topic of the sentence is 카메라. The fourth sentence, 저 사람은 이상해요. That person is strange. And the fifth sentence is 밥은 언제 먹어요? When are we going to eat? So what are we talking about once again? It's 밥. So in all of these sentences, the main topic is marked with either 은 or 는, depending on whether the word ends with a consonant or a vowel, okay? So 오늘 ends with a consonant, 리을, so you say 오늘은 rather than 오늘는, which is harder to pronounce, and 내일, which means tomorrow, ends with a consonant, 리을, so you say 내일은 rather than 내일는. 카메라 ends with a vowel, 카메라, it's a vowel, so you say 카메라는 rather than 카메라은, which is a bit more inconvenient to pronounce. You get the idea. So 은 and 는 are the same thing. And these topic marking particles, 은 and 는, also have another function. This is more interesting. It shows contrast or change of context, so to speak. So please take a look at this short conversation. Person A says, 배고파요. 우리 뭐 먹을까요? And person B says, 저는 라면 먹고 싶어요. I want to eat ramen noodles. And person A agrees and says, 저도 라면 먹고 싶어요. 도 is another particle that we're not going to cover in this video, but basically it means too or also. So me too, I also want to eat ramen noodles. But then something interesting happens. Person C says, 저는 김밥 먹고 싶어요. So person A is starting the conversation, but person C is showing some contrast because she wants something different. Not ramen, but kimbap. If she wanted the same thing, ramen noodles in this case, it would be really strange and unnatural for her to say, oh, no. 저는 라면 먹고 싶어요. Because just by saying 저는 right there in that context, the other listeners expect some twist in the plot or contrast, okay? So there would be no contrast or change of context if she wanted ramen too, so it would be a weird thing to say. Another example, you're looking at some t-shirts. You look at this red t-shirt and say, 이거 좋아요, I like it, or this is good. And you look at this yellow t-shirt and say, 이거 예뻐요, this is pretty, or I find it pretty. And then you look at the green t-shirt and say, 이거는 너무 커요. Okay? Again, 이거는 너무 커요. And that 는 is actually very necessary there because you are showing some contrast between the other two t-shirts that got your positive assessment and the green t-shirt that makes you feel like a child wearing his father's t-shirt. So in summary, the topic markers 은 and 는 are used to introduce a topic and also to show contrast. Okay, so when a group of people who have just met for the first time are introducing themselves one by one, pretty much everyone will start their introduction by saying 저는 so-and-so입니다. And in that case, that 는 there, 저는 there, not only shows the topic, which is I, for everyone it's just I am Peter, I am Steve, but it also shows contrast because the previous person was, let's say, James, but I am Peter. And then for the other person, for the next person, I is another different person. So everybody's different. So every single time they're showing contrast as well as introducing the topic. So 은 or 는 is very fitting here. Now, how about 이 and 가? These are usually called subject markers. These are called subject markers because they have a more direct and intimate relationship with the following verb. And it is often the answer to, this is very important, who did it, who will do it, who or which. Okay, so I believe some examples are expected at this point. So imagine a teacher walking into the classroom and finding the teacher's desk, broken. So he asks, who broke it? 누가 깼어? 누가 깼어? And then a brave student steps up to the teacher and says, 제가 깼습니다. 제가. Adding that 가, I am the one who did it. So the teacher goes, 그래? And then another student stands up and says, 아니에요, 선생님. No, teacher, I am the one who did it. 제가 깼습니다. Not 저는, okay? 제가, I did it. So the teacher is confused. And then another student raises his hand and says, no, 제가 깼어요. 제가. So the teacher, sensing that something weird is going on, says, 뭐야? 누구야? 지금 장난해? And at that very moment, the teacher sees yet another student quietly raising his hand. So the teacher says, okay, you tell me, who broke it? And then the student says, 저는 안 깼어요. And he runs away. 저는 안 깼어요. So what do you make of this little situation? As an answer to the teacher's question, who broke it, each student said that they were the one who broke it. They were the one who was responsible. And they are using the subject marker 가. Who did it? I did. 제가. Except for the last student who said 저는 instead of 제가. And by now you know why he said 저는. He wanted to contrast and distinguish himself from the other guys who were for some reason asking for punishment. So he says 저는, as for me, I'm different. 저는 안 깼어요. As for me, I didn't. So there you go. That's the basic difference between 은는 and 이가. But that's not it, unfortunately. There are many sentences in Korean where 은는 and 이가 are used together in one sentence, and that's when things get really, really interesting. So please look at this sentence now. What does it say? 주스는 맛있어요. 주스는 맛있어요. Juice tastes good. You're basically introducing a topic, so you go with the default 는, 주스는 맛있어요, okay? But what if you wanted to add something like 이 카페, this coffee shop, this cafe, to this equation? So let's say you just have brought some of your friends to a coffee shop and you're standing in front of it. And the main topic that you are introducing here is 이 카페. Hey, look at this coffee shop, 이 카페. So you start the sentence with 이 카페는, meaning when it comes to this coffee shop, or now talking about this coffee shop or this cafe, and then you want to add the additional information that their juice is good. So you combine those two things together and you say 이 카페는 주스는 맛있어요. Okay? So you added 이 카페는 and then the previous sentence 주스는 맛있어요. Now, if you say this, it has one potential problem. So that problem is that you might sound as if you were saying, as for this coffee shop, the juice is good, but everything else they sell is bad, or the juice is good, but their service is bad, etc., etc. You might sound as if you were trying to show some contrasting information there. Do you get it? So if you just want to say, this cafe sells some good juice, you need to say, 이 카페는 주스가 맛있어요. That 가 shows a more intimate relationship between 주스 and 맛있어요 there. So this will be a very neutral sentence. 이 카페는 주스가 맛있어요. As for this coffee shop, which is the topic, 주스가 맛있어요. The juice is good, okay? But let's change the perspective a little bit and say, someone asked, out of these 5 coffee shops that we see here, which coffee shop has the best juice? And then it's a whole other story. So here, what is the answer to who or which? And the answer is, of course, one of these coffee shops. Okay, 이 카페, 저 카페, 저 카페. So you say something quite different. 주스는 the topic and 이 카페가 맛있어요. The subject or the answer to who or which. So together you say 주스는 이 카페가 맛있어요. And then maybe 커피는 저 카페가 맛있어요. So let's compare these two sentences side by side. The first one we had was 이 카페는 주스가 맛있어요. And then the second one is 주스는 이 카페가 맛있어요. Okay, so by showing these possibly confusing similar sentences, what I'm trying to show you is that there's no set rule defining this word is used in this position in a sentence. It always depends on what kind of relationship the noun has with the verb and what is the actual main topic of the sentence or the message, okay? And we're going to move on to something also very interesting, and we're actually almost there. There's just one more thing to cover, and that is how these particles work together in compound sentences. So let's say I watched a movie. 저는 영화를 봤어요. A very neutral sentence. You watched a movie. And then let's say the movie was fun. 그 영화는 재미있었어요. Again, a very neutral sentence introducing the topic of the movie for the first time. 그 영화는 재미있었어요. But then let's combine these two together. The outcome would be, in English first, the movie I watched was fun. Okay? The movie I watched was fun. And if you can say that the blank was fun is the outer layer or bigger structure, the inner layer, the smaller structure would be the movie I watched, right? So for the outer structure, you often use 은 or 는. And for the inner included clause, you often use 이 or 가. So here, it was originally 저는 영화를 봤어요, but the combined sentence would be 제가 본 영화는 재미있었어요. 제가 본 영화는 재미있었어요. So you will see this kind of change from 는 to 가 or 은 to 이 or 가 in the process of forming many Korean compound sentences. But the thing is, that's not always just like this. Okay, so let's combine these two sentences. 저는 이 비디오를 만들었어요. Okay, 저는, 는, you see that there. And then in the next sentence, you also see another 는, another topic marker. 이 비디오는 아주 길어요. This video is very long. I know this video is probably very long too. And we can combine them and say, this video that I made is very long. And applying what we just learned from the previous example, you can say 제가 만든 이 비디오는 아주 길어요. The inner included clause 제가 만든 비디오 and the outer bigger structure 는 아주 길어요. Inside 가 or 이, outside 는 or 은, okay? But what if someone asked you, okay, which video is very long? And your answer was, hey, this video that I made is very long. In that specific case, you would say, using both 가 in the inner clause and 가 in the outer structure, you would say, 제가 만든 이 비디오가 아주 길어요. Not 제가 만든 이 비디오는 아주 길어요. Because 제가 만든 이 비디오 is the answer to what or which. So it means that just because a compound sentence has two n's here and there and two 가's here and there doesn't mean the sentence is wrong. Well, did I just make everything sound even more complicated? But you have just learned the most essential principles of the 은, 는, 이가 concept. The bad news is that it'll be confusing for a long time unless you speak Korean as your mother tongue. But the good news is it's okay. As long as you keep observing other people use these particles in real-life situations, you will continuously add more and more example usages to your database in your brain, and you will be able to convey what you want to say correctly most of the time. So what do you think? Has this video made understanding 은, 는, 이가 a little bit easier at least? If not, we recommend that you watch this again, at least the first part up until before the compound sentence portion, and that alone should help you out a lot. Well, thanks for watching, and if you want to learn even more Korean, please remember this address, talktomeinkorean.com, and we have many textbooks and ebooks on our online store at mykoreanstore.com, so be sure to check that out as well. Thank you in advance as well for liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and leaving us comments. My name is Hyun-woo, and I'll see you next time. 감사합니다.